I'd like to call the Community Preservation Committee meeting to order this evening. This is December 7th. It's at 5 o'clock. This meeting will be video recorded and broadcast over local access channel 18 and through the town website at www.eastham-ma.gov. I'm looking at the agenda, and before I start with item number 2 on the agenda, I just want to comment that you don't see the minutes for the last meeting on here. I'm working with Paul and with Natasha to get all of the minutes squared away and taken care of. And I want to get them on the website as soon as we do that. And Sheila Filipowski has called me last week and notified me that she is resigning, or has resigned, I should say, from the Conservation Commission. And she was our clerk. And so I'd like you to think about somebody that would like to replace her as clerk for this committee. And I'll discuss it at the end of this meeting. But we do need to replace her. And Janet Benjamins is on the Zoom this evening, and she is considering being the representative from the Conservation Commission in Sheila's place. So I'm going to start now to item number 2. And the first one on the item is the historic property survey. Sorry, what?
You have to do that announcement on the video. I can do it if you want.
I did it. This meeting will be video recorded. I did
You
it.
did that?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, I was reading. No problem. Great.
Bang.
Let's go.
The first item on the for the application presentations is the historic property survey, and Jay Camp is here this evening, and I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, to sit up here right in the front here and.
Okay, but I'm gonna hand out
Oh.
something for everybody to add to their application.
Okay,
I don't know whether you have one or not, but
thank you. Thanks, Jay. I should
this
have
was a
this.
page that didn't get put in the kit for some reason. And so I decided to make a copy of it. Paul had requested it. And this may help explain what we do. And I think there's another one there.
Yeah, there is. It feels like there is. Yeah.
And I have extras
Thank
that I'll leave with.
So I'm just going to ask you to explain what you're up to here, why you want $40,000, and give everybody here a chance to ask you questions after the presentation.
Okay. We have a historic inventory of properties here in Eastham that the Eastham Historic Commission has worked on for a number of years. And at this stage of the game, we have covered all the houses up till 1900. But as some of you may or may not know, we are responsible for dealing with anyone whose house is 75 years of age or older that wants to tear it down. And so it becomes very important to document the inventory. In terms of where we are, in terms of the Lower Cape, I think we're in good hands at this stage of the game, but we have been doing this. There have been 3 surveys that were done that the Community Preservation Committee approved of, and the town approved of that as well. And it takes approximately to do, say, 100 houses, 2 years in terms of the detail that's involved. Now, in your application form, there should have been somewhere in the back some examples of the kind of work that's done. And for example, there's a house on
Bridge Road.
Ridge Road. Actually, there's several houses in that neighborhood that have been documented. And this one happens to be, the yellow house happens to be one that received the Abbott Award. And if you look through that, you'll see the kind of thing that a Form B does. There's another house on the next page. And again, Form B requires, notice, a locus map and a whole variety of things that deal with the house and the people who lived in the house. So you'll find, for example, an architectural description of the house and the historic narrative. And those become very important for studying the particular houses that we have in town, in terms of also documenting them if someone wants to tear one down, to see if we can work with them to save the house or incorporate the house into another house. And that is actually a Eastham tradition. We have a number of houses that go back to the 18th century. And when the Greek Revival style came, they decided to put the Greek Revival style in front because it was more elegant than the simple Cape Cod house. So that is, and there's some pictures of houses here that have been part of the survey. We are asking for $40,000. Up until now, we have been asking $30,000, but $30,000 since pandemic doesn't cover the amount of houses that we used to be able to cover. Second, the firm that has worked with us has gone out of business. They've moved to Wisconsin.
One of my questions.
And therefore, I've been in contact with them. And also the person who does the research turned 70 and she said, I'm retiring. And so that presented a problem. But it didn't present a problem for us because we have found an excellent consultant who is now is working for Provincetown, Thoreau, Wellfleet, and he's willing to go to the Rotary. And
No farther.
and that's important in a number of ways, because the four towns have a lot of families that have, through the years, moved from one town to another, or the town lines got moved, or a variety of other things. And so therefore, we would like to continue the process of doing this. Now, we do have some properties that are surveyed already that go into the 19th century or 1900s. And those are many of the campground properties. And because one of the things that was done by earlier chairmen of this committee was to choose a theme. And so the campground, some of the campgrounds were done. They didn't know where all the streets were. That's not a problem anymore. The town is putting street signs up there. But at the same time, they also surveyed, in the very first survey, we had a very vocal selectman whose ancestors are buried in the cemetery on Bridge Road. And he insisted that his properties and his family traditions were surveyed. Now, another set of surveys were done by hand. And this required a tremendous amount of work. But what they did is they surveyed the houses that are in the historic district. And since then, the state has agreed and has done this they have taken the handwritten records and put them into something we can read at this stage of the game. So that has been done, as well as the federal historic districts. So this building, for example, has been documented, as well as the windmill, the old library, and things of that nature within that particular area. So what we are asking for is money to continue this process. The only town that I know of that is already beyond 75 years, they're way ahead of everyone else, is Chatham. And as some of you know, Chatham has some very strict rules and regulations in terms of their preserving of houses. Now, with this said, I just handed you some projected costs so that you can see why we're asking for what we're asking for. We are required to have Form B, and we're hoping to do about 126 homes built after 1900. The price per survey home is, and this is pretty universal at the moment, actually it's going up. Okay, but we can lock this in at 300. And that would cost us $37,800. Then there's the issue of paper, and these will be put on disc so that we can put them in the library and here in the town. That will run about $1,000, and I have a contingency of 1,200. Our last survey, we had a contingency, and we were able to give the town back some money. And Tina probably knows exactly what it was. It wasn't a great amount of money, but we were under.
The figure that I have is $500.
That's probably correct. It sounds right. I am a taxpayer in town, and I I am concerned about money at this time. So this was the sheet that was missing, and you can add it to your collection. And I'm willing to answer any questions you have at this stage of the game. The project would not start until, of course, the town meeting approved this, and that means probably in August. And I've tried to lock in from the different people that we've reviewed to see if we can start in August. Many of the consultants take, as I said, 1 or 2 years, but we're asking for more than 100 houses. So that is probably a 2-year process. This last time was complicated by the pandemic. And there were two other properties that we did. We did the Methodist Church, and we did next to Mrs. Buffington, the house that
Oh, the Bonnell House on Kingsbury Beach Road?
no,
Oh,
in your neighborhood,
the camp, the
The-
hunting camp,
not the hunting camp. It's, yes, the original
10 Cartway North.
Yeah.
Yeah. okay,
Cartway North.
yeah.
And that was a very interesting thing because we were able to get into the documents
Uh-huh.
of the corporation, which technically is still in existence. This parcel of land became subdivided, and there is one section that's left of the original area, and the rest is the Irish streets on one side and the Duck streets on the other side, off of Bridge Road.
Mhm.
All right. I've talked enough.
Just as a point of clarification, the 126 homes, do those include or do not include the 100-year to 75-year-old houses. You mentioned that we don't have any data for the 75-year and,
since 75.
right,
And we don't have data from 19, well, we're talking about going from 1900 to right now, I think 1946.
okay, so,
So anytime someone comes up with wanting to tear down a building, that presents a problem.
right,
But at the same time, we're aware that they're not the same historic houses that are standing and left in town.
well, I guess what I'm getting at is the list, the computer runoff list you have
Yes,
shows houses built in 1900, 1910, 1914, 15, 20 into the 30s and beyond. So how do I say this right?
none of these houses have been surveyed
Okay, so what you've surveyed is pre-1900, prior to the,
prior to 1900.
which is more than 100 years old.
Yes,
Okay, got it. Got it. So therefore, what you're asking for is 1900 and newer, up
Yes.
to that 75 years.
yes.
Correct. Good, thank you.
But Jay, you do have on that sheet, one of the columns says surveyed with a question, then you say when, so, and there's information on there. So is that, it looks to me like you've got
What page is that?
page one.
One of your spreadsheet,
Of the spreadsheet list, yeah.
Okay.
the very first item.
Yeah.
All right. Type R is residence, okay? Buildings tells how many buildings are on that lot,
Right,
and
year bill,
year built, that's what the research is going to confirm. All of these came from the assessor's office, who has the cards for all the buildings. And what we've done with that particular material is we are able to go, if you look at the dates, we're able to take off the assessor's cards, all of these particular properties. And this is a marvelous invention, the computer, to allow us to do these things.
Okay, yeah, I think what Mary's getting at too is some of them have been surveyed. So probably the list keeps going and we don't have the full list. To get 126 homes that haven't been surveyed, there probably is a page 3.
Well, we might want to survey some of these properties over,
Okay,
because data changes. And every time we have a survey, we discover that there's more information to be found than we've ever found before,
okay.
simply because more historic societies are putting their things online. More towns are putting their records online. And then, of course, you also have to get into the description of the houses and the people who live there, et cetera. And this last survey that we had, we did survey a number of other properties before that. We resurveyed them and we found far more information.
Okay.
So
So
that's what-
probably 2005 didn't have, if they were surveyed in 2005, you think those probably are missing a lot of those.
there's obviously more information
Okay,
that's involved in that particular area. And now that I see we're on the first page.
Yeah.
it's just, it's the
If you-
second to last column that
Could
I
you
was
just
saying.
tell us what CGA means?
Yeah.
It says 2005
Campground
CGA.
Association.
Is that what it means? On the very top?
The first item, 2005 CGA.
You got a CGA, you got KBAs,
Campground Association.
Yes, Campground Association.
and what's KBA?
KBA.
Kingsbury Beach Association.
Kingsbury Beach.
Kingsbury Beach.
Okay. All right,
Okay,
and the-
Excuse
yeah,
me.
sorry, go, I'm sorry.
Or what is Campground Association? I lived there then and know nothing about this.
I can't tell you.
Okay.
And maybe we will have the answer when this survey gets done.
So are the 126 houses that you are hoping to do, I think it's 126, yeah,
Are on this,
they're up,
all on
they're
this,
all on this page.
yes.
So you don't go in order, you just, there's no order, I mean, you don't start with the campground one first and then go, I mean.
We start,
You could
No.
jump around.
what we have done in the last survey and this survey, and this was my decision as a historian who does research, and that was, instead of dealing with groups and things, let's start from the very beginning
Mhm.
and deal with the oldest house and continue on
From age.
from age.
Okay,
Yes,
Right.
the whole process is from age. And the result is, I think at this stage of the game, we've done a marvelous job.
Mhm.
And we'd like to continue it. Because it's, these houses are going to, many of these houses now are the houses that were built when vacation became popular.
Mhm.
And the result is that many of them are on very small lots. Many of them have septic systems that are cesspools still, because they haven't been sold, they're still in the family. Many of them have no town water, they have wells. And when you have 100 by 100 square feet, that's a pretty small
Mhm.
spot. We have, and we've found that through surveying some of the, in particular myself, surveying a lot of the areas of campground and Kingsbury Beach, that many of these cottages were put on without even just thinking about where the lines were, because we didn't have zoning then.
Mhm.
And so, for example, the house that we approved to be torn down and rebuilt, that was in the Provincetown Journal article last time. That house was like 25 feet from the shore of the pond that it's on, Crosby Village. And now it's going to be moved back
That's fine.
to the 100 feet, and there's still plenty of room for parking and things. So that helps with the conservation area, and the conservation people were actually very helpful with the people that were there, that were moving that house.
So I have a question. You talked about the fact that you can't use the current firm that you've had in the past,
Yes,
and that you're planning on going with a firm that you haven't used, that you've heard about through
We've-
Provincetown.
we've not only heard from Provincetown, we also went through the Massachusetts Historic
Oh.
Commission,
Okay,
and we went through our own representative, the county, Sarah Korjeff.
and
And
you,
Sarah was very, very positive about. the
Sarah
fir-
Peak, you're talking about?
No, Sarah Korjeff,
Oh, Sarah, oh,
and she is the chairman of the historic aspects of the county government. For
So-
example, she had to deal with, which was a sad thing, the tearing down of the 5 mansions next to the hospital so that it can be expanded with modern housing.
So I have another question. So, you weren't because of the impossible way of getting the quote, you weren't able to get really 3 quotes to do this work there. You're,
No, we didn't.
Mhm.
And we were told by the town manager
Mhm.
and by the accountant that that was not necessary in this particular type of project.
okay.
So that is thing. If you want us to get 3 quotes, I suppose we can. But you also have to remember, we have to have a firm that we can trust.
Uh-huh.
And that's very, very important. And Eric I've gotten to know Eric through the meetings that Sarah Korjeff has had. She has tried to get the representatives, all the chairs in the towns here on the Cape together once a year to discuss what we're doing and how we can improve things. And it is very helpful to listen to different towns as to how they go about their business. And that's why I know that we are ahead of most towns. For example, the woman who did the work for us for the 3 surveys, who's retired, was conned into doing something for Brewster. Now, I had to work with Brewster because we have a number of properties of old names that were here in Eastham, moved to Brewster, or moved from Brewster to Eastham, etc. And she was totally, and I'm talking about academia because I'm from academia, she was totally opposed to hiring a consultant. She's now passed away, and they hired our consultant who did a certain number of homes, but we're way ahead of Brewster because they did this one by one, and it takes a tremendous amount of work. I've worked on several properties where people will call and the other thing, and want to know about a particular property. And sometimes we find there were mistakes. There are a lot of mistakes on the town records. This also helps us with town records. And you also have to remember the courthouse burned in Barnstable. And so there's a number of years where there are no records except for historic societies and towns. And our town has a number of things that are now in the library, and as well as the vault. And the records that are in the library are all town records. The Historic Society, when the new library was built, decided they did not want to be part of a collection. But now we have a new archivist who has worked with me, and she's learning all of the things that are in the town archives. And that helps when you have a cross working relationship with the Historic Society and the town.
Do you think this firm, given the fact that there aren't very many firms that do it, they'd be able to start? Do you know when they'd be able to start, or are they busy with everybody else?
I was told by checking with him that he would be finishing up with one of the 4 towns that I mentioned before August. So he could start at the end of August. But in theory, I've been on your committee. So in theory, we've tried to get projects done in a year, but this kind of a work we can't guarantee to be done in a year. And that's why I said 2 years. And then the pandemic actually caused us for 2.5 years. Yes, you get your finger up.
Yeah, I'm just.
Oh,
Joanna,
I just don't want to forget that I have my hand. Yeah, thank you. I did actually try to sort of look into some of the records and where they are, and it's very interesting. The town website, unfortunately, is pretty out of date. It's just got a little bit on the 2005 survey and the 2013 report and some maps. And so at the library, though, down in the Eastham room, there are the volumes, the hard copy volumes from 1995, 2005, and 2013. But where are the more recent 2020 ones?
they are there too.
The 2020, I must have missed those.
Yes.
And Mr. Fahrenkopf, who was very helpful, gave me the state website, but I didn't realize they're actually on the library website
Yes.
as well. I'll have to look at that too. 'Cause-
And that's one of the things I feel very strong about. I believe these records should be made accessible to everyone.
Yeah.
And I have talked to the realtors
Uh-huh.
at different times and different realtors so that they're aware of different things.
Yeah, it would be great though, if, I mean, I don't think we need to double everybody's work and copy things, but maybe on the town website, it could direct people to the library website, which has the 2020.
Well, Paul, I believe, was going to do, he started putting this on the town website,
Yeah,
but his job has slowly evolved, and he's got more on his plate than he
Right.
knows what to do with.
right.
And so I think we have to be careful, but he will, the other thing that we are doing, and this has nothing to do with the survey, but just for your information, with the new assessor, I am working with the new assessor to put onto the cards all the buildings that have been Form B. That way,
Great
it's
idea.
easier for anyone looking at the cards to get that information. And it's very important.
Yeah, that's great.
For example, when the general store was being bought by the town, I managed to get it hadn't been published yet, but I managed to get the latest material for that. And the town manager was very grateful for that at this point in time.
Well,
I have another question, and you mentioned it earlier. The last survey that you did was back in May of 2019. It was for 30,000, and our records show that 29,500 has been spent, and there's 500 left. So we need to get that off the books. I mean, not off the books, but moved into the proper bucket.
Yes, I'm willing to do
There's a
anything you want.
form,
There's a
form.
new form that you were creating when I came last time. That's what you were going to do.
Yeah.
But I had already asked Tina
Yeah.
to close that. I don't know whether I'll still do the form for you.
Yeah.
Okay, and Paul has the final copy of the survey.
great.
And if you'd like
Sure.
it, I will have it reproduced.
Mhm.
The 2019 to 2000.
2020.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the copy of the form is in your packet.
Yes,
Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Right. So we need to have that completed
Yes.
to get Tina to move the $500 to close that out, and
Oh, I definitely,
yeah,
I'm totally in favor of that. So that will be done by next week.
okay, thank you very much.
I think in light of the 3 bid issue, I think all we would need would be a letter from the Eastham Historical Society indicating.
No, not Historic Society,
Your
Historic Commission.
commission
Commission.
indicating the difference, just why 1 bid is sufficient. I think we should have something in our file. Just
Okay,
a letter saying it's not feasible, there aren't enough people doing it,
no,
that kind of thing.
I
So
will-
that if anybody ever questions, why didn't you require 3 bids? We can refer to the letter and say it's not feasible to get 3 bids.
Well, isn't, maybe Tina can answer that question, isn't it, or is it $50,000? If it's under $50,000, you don't need to do that. Is that correct, Tina? You don't need to go out for 3 bids?
No, ma'am, it's not quite correct.
Okay,
And I think I want to talk to Shayna, our procurement officer, but I do believe that Mr. Camp's project does fall under a 2 special rules. One would be that this is a sole source provider, meaning basically what Mr. Camp said. But also, and this gets a little bit tricky because we have to go through procurement if something is over $10,000, unless it's not on town property. And those houses that he is working on are not town property.
Mm.
So I think that excludes him from having to do that.
And, excuse me, but isn't there also something about specialties? You know, like you don't have a choice. You can't call up a concrete purveyor. You know, folks.
Well, I do believe that's what I was referring to as sole source.
Yeah.
You know, there's some vendors that we need that there aren't very many of. They only do a special thing, and that's considered a sole source.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
This, as Mary just pointed out, this came up at the lighthouse situation. They couldn't get 3 competitive bids from contractors because it's such a finite number of contractors that work on
Yeah.
lighthouses. I think just a one-page letter would be appropriate. And
Okay.
if you did that, it's in our records and I would be happy. I don't know what the rest of the board members, I would be happy with that.
Okay. Is there anything else you want to ask me?
Mark has a
Mark.
I
question.
just want to say, I've seen some of the surveys and they're wonderful. There's, if you go through, there's information of houses that came up, Billingsgate Island.
Uh-huh.
I mean, the stuff they add to them is just wonderful. I think it's a great thing for the town and the history.
And the new archivist at the Historic Society
Yes.
has found them immensely helpful. Now, the other thing that we haven't mentioned is that the town fathers decided that the Historic Commission would also take over the Historic Cemetery Commission. And so that's added another wrinkle to our work.
Well, and hopefully when you find an error on the assessor card, for example, 10 Cartway North, it says built in 1900. That's when it came over on a horse and buggy, maybe from Brewster. It was actually built in 18 something. So.
Well,
Yeah.
we've done some research on that, and one of the things is that it actually was on Bridge Road. And it was probably part of the property. And it was moved to where it was located, and from there, they built the structure around it.
Mhm.
So have you been inside that house?
Yes.
You'll see that extra stairwell.
Yep.
And it's so steep,
Yeah.
it goes up, but they took the roof off so that they could create a second floor that was on the same level as everything else.
Right. But it was definitely built before 1900.
Oh,
I mean,
yes,
the
it was,
core
it was,
part, yeah.
it was probably built around the 1830s, judging from the fact that it has a fan light over the door.
Yeah.
So,
Any other questions from folks? Are people okay with the proceeding to vote for the project?
I'll make a motion that the Eastham Preservation Act Committee approve the application of the Eastham Historical Commission in the amount of $40,000 to continue with their studies of historic structures in the town of Eastham.
Do I-
yes,
Second,
oh.
Who said second?
Doesn't matter, Joanna.
Joanna?
Well, I thank you very much for your,
Well, we have to
Wait a
vote.
minute, all in favor? Aye.
Aye,
I think we can do aye because we're
okay.
here. All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Very good.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-0.
Now you're done.
Thanks, Jay.
thank you very much
Sure.
for,
Glad you're feeling better.
oh, thank you for that too. All right, I'll let you go on. Sounds like you have a number of cases that you have to
Yeah,
deal
we
with
do.
today.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm going to go to the third case on the list because Henry's here. Henry, would you like to?
Your
Join us
seat
up.
now, Henry, it's all warmed up.
You didn't plug it in, did you?
No, I didn't. It's not as bad as a car.
So. Put this away over here. So we should just introduce ourselves. I probably know most of us here. I'm Mary Shaw.
Dan Koppelman.
hi, Henry, Joanna.
Mark Berman.
Eileen Morgan.
Natasha Frodell.
Ed Kesseroff.
Indeed. Well, I am Henry Lind.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's nice to meet everyone and re-meet everyone that I've previously known. I recognize that some of us are part of the Eastham Conservation Foundation, which I'm here to represent. I serve as the president. And this project is a first event for the foundation working with the town in terms of a joint effort to purchase a piece of land in order to protect it from in perpetuity from development. I must say that the application process that the committee has put together is very comprehensive. And the one that we submitted was developed largely through the efforts of the Compact of Conservation Trusts. So just a quick background, every town on the Cape has some kind of a land trust. Ours is not a trust, it's a foundation. And the goal is to protect and preserve open space lands. Many of the towns have proceeded in the direction that we're going in working jointly with the town government through CPA funds or other methods to purchase properties. If you think about Brewster recently, Dennis had a fairly large project not too long ago. Harwich has done the same thing. Eastham is one of the smaller land trusts on the Cape. And I was intrigued to hear that the Historic Commission is working with the other lower Cape towns because that's exactly what Eastham is contemplating. We are one of a very few all volunteer land trusts on the Cape. The others are Provincetown, Truro, and Wellfleet. And so we're thinking it make sense to combine efforts and unity and strength in numbers. So this project came to us a couple of years ago, before the pandemic blew up, or just as it was exploding, when a property, a 1 acre part of another property that has been historically preserved through the family's good intentions. Mrs. Thomas put a conservation restriction on most of the property that runs from Bridge Road all the way down to the Cape Cod Bay alongside the herring run. Families being families, not all of the family members thought that that was a great idea. And one of the family members said, no, I think I'd like to have a piece of that, like just in case I want to build a house at some point. And fair enough. So the family agreed. The conservation restriction was put in place. The other family members cooperated nicely. Every year we do a survey. We send a report back that says that you didn't build any McDonald's by the sea or anything like that on the property, and everything is just fine. Got a call in 2021 from the other family members that said the third family member wants to sell the property. And they thought it would be in the best interest of the property as well as the neighborhood to not have it be sold for another house. And would the Eastham Conservation Foundation be willing to purchase it? Well, at the time, the price was $350,000, and we just don't happen to have that kind of cash on hand. So we said, well, let's see what we can do. And so we can end up with a third party who graciously stepped in and said, we'll hold it for you until such time as the foundation can raise the funds. And then when that happens, there's a couple of advantages to a sale to a land trust foundation at bargain prices. And that is that the Commonwealth will immediately pay up to a $75,000 check to the seller. That's one of the ways that the Commonwealth has changed its method of helping towns and other nonprofits to protect open space. So for instance, in Eastham, the Cottontail Acres, South Eastham Conservation Area, other places that the town has purchased were outright grants from the Commonwealth to help buy the property. It wasn't 100% of the purchase price, but it was a significant part. Commonwealth has changed its methods, and one of the things that it's done is to do this $75,000 reimbursement to a seller to a nonprofit if it's a bargain sale. And so the discussion between the third party and the foundation was, let's go ahead. We will wait until 2023 because it's a pretty popular program and it was already spoken for back in 21, 22. So the goal was to sell it in 2023 and get that $75,000 back. In the interim, guess what? Prices have changed on real estate. And so now it's valued far more than that, but that means that we're now eligible for some other state funding. And that means $175,000 has been granted to the Eastham Conservation Foundation to purchase it from this third party. The missing piece is what we're coming to ask to the Community Preservation Act Committee for, and that is $50,000. We have done some private fundraising. We've notified all of our members that please get out your checkbooks as you usually do and very generously. But it's still a big ticket item. So The notion of having the town purchase a conservation restriction on the property means that the town doesn't have to own it, doesn't have to maintain it, doesn't have to worry about all the things that go with that. But it ensures that nothing else will happen to it. It's a requirement of the 175,000 that's coming from the Commonwealth to make sure that there's somebody out there watching. Of course, we work very closely with the town on a bunch of projects. In fact, we're in the process of doing just exactly the opposite, where the foundation will hold the conservation restriction on all the other town properties that have been purchased with state monies in the past. Cooperation means graduation, so we're hoping to graduate. So with that, the timeline is kind of complicated as usual, because this is a multifaceted project. The Commonwealth needs to have the sale happen by 30th of June of 2023, because that's when their books close. Unfortunately, town meeting doesn't allow any funds to be expended until after July 1st.
Right.
What do we do? So we have applied to another of the funds that's available through the Compact of Conservation Trusts, which is basically it's a defense fund that we maintain for the use by any of the trusts, low interest loans for short periods of time. And the trust, it's not uncommon for this kind of a situation where timing is critical to occur. So we will be applying for, and has been approved, a bridge loan to cover from the closing date in late June until such time as the town, assuming that the town funds are approved at town meeting, will come through, and we can complete the whole process in July of 2023. You have to kind of keep your eye on the shell, but it has been successful in other towns, and we're hoping that it will be in this also. Questions?
No, I think, first of all, I want to compliment you on your application. It's very thorough and I am impressed with it. And one of our goals is not to put any funds at risk. So I think you've covered that. Because we don't want to put funds out there and have a project fall through. It sounds like we will be the tail end of this as far as the funding. You mentioned that this will be a restricted covenant. You're not going to take a title to the land. You're going to have.
The title would be with the Eastham Conservation Foundation.
Will,
Right.
okay.
The conservation restriction, however,
Right.
is a document that goes through the process of being approved by in whatever agency it's giving it. And then it's finally recorded with the Secretary of Environmental Affairs.
Okay. So the rest of this orange property has that restriction, but not ownership like you're getting on this piece.
That's correct. Yeah,
Okay,
the
great.
family still owns that.
Right.
The advantage of a CR is that the family can still own it. So as in, historically, family owned a large piece of land, the taxes got to be outrageous. What do? We really don't want to develop it, but we don't want to lose the open space. So the conservation restriction results in a significant reduction in real estate value. So their taxes are minimal, and they still get to enjoy the land, and the habitat is still protected.
Great. I have no further questions.
So you're planning on getting the 175 from the grant. You're planning on hoping 50,000 from us. That leaves about 128,000.
Correct.
Your operation is raising that monies.
That is correct. Yeah.
Do you expect to have any problem? I mean, you've got to have that money by this summer, right?
Correct. Yes. Yep. No, so far it's coming in very nicely. We're very pleased with the response from our mission.
And what would happen if you didn't have it? The 128.
I would
Clerk?
say that the compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trust in their Thompson Land Fund that they will loan, if we needed more time, I'm sure we could get
To
an
raise the
extension
additional
of that.
Exactly. Yeah, that loan is going to cover the purchase price. And then if we don't get to pay back the full amount as soon as it's done, then they'll just hold it for us.
Right.
I serve as the treasurer of the compact also, so I'm kind of involved in both sides of the equation.
Things can be worked out. Huh?
They can, exactly. Just you nod your head and I'll hit it, kind of thing. Yep.
Any other questions from folks?
Mary,
Yes.
May I speak to this real quick?
Sure.
It's nice to see Henry here, and I just wanted to clarify something. And I do not want to confuse anyone, because you're right, July 1 is the start of the new year. But, well, this is a big but, because I think we're still struggling to figure out what day we're having town meeting. But as soon as we have town meeting, you can spend that money. You do not have to wait till July 1. So if that helps in any way, we certainly can do the $50,000 check the next day after town meeting. It's town meeting, July 1 is for the operating budget, but CPA is in a special fund and isn't held to that standard. So the day after town meeting, we could write the check if we have all the proper paperwork.
Even better.
That is the best news I've heard all day. Thank you very much.
So
You're
what you're
welcome.
saying, Tina, is that because the monies aren't budgeted in the town, they're with the CPA, that money is available once the approval is made.
Yes,
at
ma'am.
At town meeting.
Yes, ma'am.
That's interesting.
Wow, excellent. Thank you.
Mm.
So that's going to change our timeline a little bit. So we should
Yeah,
be
that
done
might-
by the end of
yeah.
the
Help-
fiscal
help
year.
you with the cost.
Super.
Any other questions or comments?
I make a motion, we approve $50,000 for the purchase of 100 Cold Road.
Do I have a second? Eileen? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I
Nice to
appreciate
meet
your
you.
support. Indeed, likewise.
The third item on the list is with Paul, so I'm going to
Paul
ask,
still here?
yeah, he's, well,
I'm here.
his
I'm here.
face,
Oh,
his
okay.
face isn't there, but his name is.
Thought maybe you went out to dinner.
No, I'm listening intently.
Okay, Paul, you're on.
Okay, thank you. So we've talked about this before, but this is kind of the official discussion. So I put forth an application to for funds for the CPA administrative assistant position. This position would work within the community development department, but they would really just the sole focus would be on Community Preservation Act business. So a big part of that would be the clerical piece, the meeting minutes, postings, agendas, and so forth. But an equally important part of that is going to be really administering the CPA projects, facilitating, basically project support, overseeing and keeping track of the project budgets, the working with Tina to square away invoicing, quality control as projects get facilitated through working directly with the grantees and so forth. So I believe in my application, I provided a job description, and that's kind of, as I've explained before, I think this position is needed. I think, to be honest, this committee has not had the staff support that it requires, and given the importance of the projects, the wide breadth of projects that take place in all facets of the town, and the amounts of money that get spent, I think it's warranted that we have proper oversight. So I'll kind of leave it at that, and then I'm happy to answer any questions or go into any further details.
Questions?
Paul, just for clarification for the public who may be watching this, this position would begin after June of 2023?
Well, I think in light of what Tina just said, I think we possibly could hire that, use that money before July, but the timeline that I had laid out would be just anticipating a July 1 start date, but I think, depending on, on the availability of funds, we would want to have this person come on board as soon as possible, because really the start of, in the fall is when this group really gets going, and that's the start of the grant round. And so I'd like to have this person on board as early as possible so they can get up to speed. And a big part of what I would like them to do is just work with this committee early on and try to up our public awareness and our outreach and our public education before we get to the start of the next grant season. So
Tina? We don't hear you. There you go.
I'm here, sorry.
Okay, like the previous application, does this qualify for release of funds prior to July 1st?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Joanna?
And I think this is great, as I mentioned last time, and one of the things is, sort of tracking CPA requirements on projects like the conservation restrictions and historical deed restrictions. But also, as we just heard from Jay, and getting, I hope this person can help with getting things that the final reports and things on the websites, the library website and stuff. I think that'll be extremely helpful. So thanks for pushing this forward, and I'm totally for it.
yeah, thanks, Joanna. Those are good examples of exactly what I'd like to have this person working on.
Anybody else? I have some questions. I'm wondering how this affects Tina's responsibilities.
I don't, well, I'll let Tina speak for
cry.
herself, but for my part, I don't think it really affects anything. This position would, I think if anything, just be support to Tina, and certainly help keep the invoicing and the quality control on, are the project pieces, the components done when we're seeing requests for reimbursements, so that Tina has more confidence that, we're paying out invoices for work that's been done, signed off, if you will, by the grantees. I don't know, Tina, if you have any other thoughts on how you.
Yeah, I'd like to hear
Yeah.
from Tina.
I don't mean to be rude, but I really don't feel like, of course, I'm gonna work with this person and we'll bounce things off of each other, but I really don't feel like she will be a part of the accounting work that I have to do for you guys in the background, because there's a lot of accounting for CPA. She would be, this person, he or she would be responsible for invoices and stuff like that they would submit to my office. So we would have that kind of interaction, but they wouldn't be doing the spreadsheet that I do for you, or any of the accounting entries, or taking care of the reserves or anything like that. That would definitely have to stay within my office. So I see us working together, but it wouldn't, none of my responsibilities would move to her or him.
Are you comfortable with that, Paul?
Yes.
No.
There isn't any really room for debate on that. That's the accounting. Tina's the accountant. She does the accounting, and I agree with everything she said. I think it'll be better coordination for quality control and invoicing and things like that. So.
I have another question. I know in the past, we have approved $40,000 for a housing coordinator, and we were paying for that out of the housing bucket, so to speak. Since this person is going to be working on all 4 of our buckets, and I'm concerned, I think the administrative monies that we have in the budget right now for this year are $54,000. And we are looking towards having in 5 years, which is 2024, a review of the Community Preservation Act itself in town. Would we be able to pay for this person like 25% from each of the 4 buckets type of thing, versus using the administrative monies? Because I'm wondering about going forward and hiring somebody, and every year having to figure out how to pay for somebody will that
Right.
job be available or not every year?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things to just to think about. Option. Well, I'll back up for a sec. So I requested 40,000. But that will not be we will not need that entire amount because this is going to at least start out as a part-time position. So, but I wanted to secure enough just to cover any unforeseen issues, or if we feel like at some point additional funding is required, or more times if we wanted to up the hours on it. So I don't anticipate that we would, at least to start, use the 40,000. I really just wanted to reserve that as the outside number. As far as where the money would come from, I think there's two options, and I'll also, defer to Tina if she has any, if I get anything wrong here, but I think option one is you could fund the whole salary straight out of the admin budget. But option two, as you said, Mary, is you could split it up amongst the 4 categories because just to take the burden off the admin budget. We will have, as you said, to update our 5-year plan, which is going to come up. And so we'll need to, steward some money for that. We've hired consultants in the past to do that. So I think those are the 2 options, but we won't, as I said, I don't anticipate using the 40,000. I think the way it would really play out is that an amount of 40,000 could be recommended by this committee. And if it were approved at town meeting, that kind of holds it. But then once we hire this position, figure out exactly what the salary costs are going to be, then the CPA would kind of authorize the use of that, the lesser amount out of the 40,000 for the salary.
So should that decision be made before we vote?
Just, can I ask a
Joanna?
quick question? It seems to me it would make more sense, I like coming out of the admin budget, which is year by year. If it's not used, it goes back into the general funds of CPA. The second option, I would think, makes more sense to come out of that 60%, which is not, or 55%, which is not allotted, since that covers all as well, rather than out of the 10% for each. That to me doesn't make as much sense because of the restrictions on each of those 10% has to be very specific. So Tina, what do you think? Admin funds versus?
I think you're calling the unallocated.
Thank you,
undesignated
unallocated.
funds.
You're muted.
Joanne, I think that somehow you got lost in translation there because I don't think we're saying we will take the 40,000 out of the unallocated, but we would not take it out of the reserves. I think what Paul is saying, on my spreadsheet, the first page, how it's broken up, historic, housing, rec, and admin expense. I use this report to do the state reporting. And I think what Paul is saying, what Paul and I talked about, is dividing it up between the 4 to give credit to those 4 that we're spending money on those things. So it's not all going towards housing. We're not taking it out of the reserves. What Paul is saying was we're going to not just give affordable housing credit for spending this $40,000, but we would divide it up amongst open space, rec, housing, and historic. So we would not take it out of the reserves. It would come out of the unallocated.
Yeah.
Just how we're going to track it after we spend it, so everyone gets credit, and the reporting that I do to the state is clear.
I like that idea.
Yeah.
I like that idea versus taking it out of the administrative, because I think I'd like to save that money as we move along for the 5-year review that we're going to have.
But that doesn't carry over year to year. That's the problem with the admin funds, that 5%. goes away each
Yeah,
year.
right, right. But
Okay.
I'm just saying that,
Yeah.
that, if we were to take next year 40% out of 54, then there's not enough left for the review that we would need,
Yeah.
from my perspective. Okay, any other questions, et cetera? Do I have a motion to approve the CPA Administrative Assistant I guess you call it a program or a person? For the, to assist Paul in all of the, as described in his job description.
I make a motion to spend $40,000 for administrative support for CPC.
I'll second it.
Dan,
Yes, I second it.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 1, 2, 3, Eileen? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6, 0.
Great.
Thanks.
Paul,
My
you
thanks
can't leave
to you for your support on this.
Yeah, Paul, you can't leave now.
No.
He's stuck, right?
That's it.
Okay. I'm looking at the agenda, and we're on to item number 3, review status of ongoing CPA projects, and the packet had 2 closing statements on 2 open space. The 390 Locust Road final report, and I think it was 0 Nauset Road, not final report. And after the fact, Joanna sent out an email.
Mhm.
And would you like to talk about it? Joanna?
Yeah, anything bought with land bank funds or CPA funds on open space are required to have a conservation restriction on it. So I wanted to make sure that I don't think we should hold up the report,
Mhm.
but that it needs to say those still haven't been completed. I mean, they've been completed, they are stuck somewhere. Which is a problem.
In the state?
No,
Oh.
with town council, I'm told.
Really?
We, after there being a huge lag, in getting them done with the previous, town administration, we were approved to hire, the compact of Cape Cod Conservation Trust to put them all together and do a joint one as they do for other towns. So we actually paid for them to be compiled and finished, and then to go up to the state, and they've never made it to the state. So we need to figure out where they're stuck. We kept being told they were with our town council. And then the last I heard is our town council knows nothing about it. So we're back in this circular thing. So
what's the timing on all of this, do you think? You have no clue.
I don't know, Paul, if you've heard anything, but I just we need to add that line that,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, they're still outstanding. So if
So-
the
so-
state came down at some point to say, hey, you know, so far they haven't, but it might jeopardize future funds. I don't know.
So the copies that I have, the verbiage needs to be. Or did you, I'm trying to remember. whether
yeah, I
have-
sent-
I think I'm trying to remember whether I have updated, amended. Copies.
Yeah.
With the statement that needs to be on there.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So do we need we don't need to vote on a final report, do we?
No.
I don't think so. Does anybody else? Yeah, okay. So any questions on either of these final reports? So in both cases, there's monies left over, so the 35,520 and the 4,030 will go back into the proper locations, proper buckets.
Well, do we want to close them out prior to the actual covenants being recorded and done? Maybe there's going to be some additional fees. You know, is it possible that you're,
Well,
if something gets
Hmm?
bogged down, do you need to throw money someplace in order to resolve it?
we tried that by getting Mark to do this.
Right.
Seriously.
No, I understand.
And in fact, if we were to say that, you know, that's the case, there are a lot more that are on here that are not closed out because of that same reason. Previous studies, the CPA funds going to the Harris property. So I don't know, there's way more than just these two that are outstanding. That got CPA funds or land bank funds that have no
And
CR
they're-
recorded.
They're stuck with town attorneys? Or somewhere
Someplace.
on the progression?
Yeah, I don't understand
Just-
why we
yeah.
can't find out where they are,
Yeah.
where the holdup is.
That's why we're hiring a new person to help us.
Right, that's why we're gonna have a new person.
They're gonna, yeah, they're gonna have to have a magic wand there, because.
Yeah.
I hate,
A black hole and nobody knows.
I hate to close out financially a project that has any issue outstanding.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
case there's
In
a,
case
We're not
something
gonna
comes-
spend
And
it,
fee
we're not
now.
gonna spend the $4,000 anyplace else.
Yeah.
right,
So what's the rush to close it out unless we're satisfied with everything?
I mean, it's not like we need the money to put the
Right.
money
We
back
don't-
into the fund.
Someplace else that somebody wants it, so my thought would be, let's leave it open until everything's closed out.
Yeah, I think you're right, Dan.
Okay,
Yeah, I agree.
okay. All right,
Okay, so,
Hey,
Nina,
Dan,
yes,
can you hear me?
yes,
So a couple of things. You've already voted to close these articles. I think last year we were looking at them. And we did not have a final report, but we had a discussion that we have this huge bucket of admin money that if any of those restrictions or any additional cost comes in for any of those properties, we could pay for it out of admin. So we have been closing the properties, and the ones that Joanna is presenting to us tonight have already been closed, and the money went back to the reserves.
so you don't need a vote from us on it anyways.
if that's the case.
So it's
we don't
over.
need it.
It's already done.
Yeah.
And that's what I wanted to say to Mary, that normally we would have a vote when it's closing, but we just kind of did this last year to clean up, because we had so many properties that just had a little bit of money, like that Harris property, and it just sat there forever. And I remember Peter Wade saying we can always pay for that cost out of our admin bucket.
Hmm.
And everyone agreed with that.
Mhm.
So those were closed and they're not on our list any longer.
Yeah, yeah.
So the point is mute.
All right, so we don't vote, the monies have been moved, if any monies are needed, they would come out of the
Admin.
admin account.
Fine,
But it still has these things in limbo, which is.
Yeah.
it's frustrating.
still don't know where they are. I mean.
But at least the monies are available for other things.
Yes,
I guess that's the main thing from my perspective.
And I think going forward, since you've started being more aggressive and we're getting the help to track these finished projects down, that maybe we can get on a good routine cycle, that we get the closed project report, we vote, we close the project. Unless you want to hold that money for something. So I can tell you what we did in the past and tell you we have room to do it either way going forward. It just needs to be your decision as the committee.
Thanks, Tina. Okay, I'm on the agenda for number 4, review CPA cash balance as of 10/31/22, and Tina had put together the information that she's provided us in the past. And I want to make a couple of comments. I'm looking at the fiscal year 10/31/22 information on page 1. You can see where the taxes that have been paid, with the CPA monies that we've received from the taxes that have been paid, account for the 375,536 that's on here. And I'm assuming that that will probably increase a little because the taxes were due on November 1st. So probably by the end of the accounting for the end of this month, which has already happened, that number will increase quite a bit.
Yes, ma'am.
And also I want to report that the line under that, the state reimbursement, we have received notice that the money, those monies have been paid, and that's 354,653. So that should be showing up in the next at the end of this month's
Yes, ma'am.
budget. And the other question that I have is, I believe Governor Baker signed, there's some additional monies with the state at $20 million for CPA. And that should be coming at some point.
Not sure when that's coming.
I know I have the information here, but it doesn't say exactly when it's been signed, but it doesn't say when it will be received. So that will be interesting to see. I'm assuming that will be allocated on the same, similar basis as the other state monies. Would you know anything
Yes,
about
ma'am.
that? Yeah, okay. Any questions from anybody on the financial information that Tina provided us for this packet? Okay. Let's see, the annual report that Dan put together, that's item number 5. Has everybody looked at it and seen that? Let's see, 20 million. Any questions on the annual report that Dan submitted for the Community Preservation Committee? And under other business, first, I just want to personally thank Carolyn McPherson. She put together the very nice Excel spreadsheet that was in your packet that I think is very helpful. It's listing all of the projects, the 8 projects that we've agreed to, and the information associated with each one. And I just want to thank her for putting that together, because I think it's really helpful to have. Are there any questions on that from anybody? That form that I've just mentioned?
No, that is really helpful.
Yes, yeah.
Going forward.
Yeah, you just
Kind
bring
of
it with
yeah,
you.
yeah,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I think, now that we have it, we can show the amount that we've approved for the ones that we talked with today, the 3 in December, and then list the 4 for January. Under other business, as I mentioned earlier, Sheila Filipowski has resigned from the Conservation Commission. And as a result, she was the liaison between the Conservation Commission and our committee. She was also our clerk, and she was reappointed this past year. So her term was to be completed in 2025. So we've lost a clerk. So has anybody since we started this meeting, and I mentioned it earlier, had any thoughts on who would like to be nominated to be the clerk to
Who's not
replace?
here? Carolyn's not.
Touche.
Can you remind me, now that we have Natasha doing the minutes, what does the clerk just checks when Natasha's finished the minutes to approve them?
Essentially, you should, from my perspective, I've never been the clerk here, but I've been the clerk on some of the other committees. I think you should make sure that the minutes are in order. You've got to sign them. Your name should be at the bottom. You should be working in this case, if Natasha is the one that's going to be doing it, working with her to make sure that they're in the packet for the next month's meeting,
Mhm.
and that they're on the website. Because I know we've talked about this. I'm really want to get the minutes, the past minutes onto the website. There's nothing there right now. And I really don't think it's a good
Does the
idea.
Clerk's office does.
This
Yep,
committee
they have
is
to be
not
given
alone.
them, have to be
No,
given.
Yeah, once we give them the minutes,
They put them on the website.
They put them on.
Linda Sassy has been doing it
Yeah,
for the other committees that I'm involved with, yeah. But I think we were just having because of issues associated with, I mean,
we had to approve all the past ones.
yeah,
Sure,
yeah,
of course.
yeah.
So I'd be willing to serve as the clerk, but let me, full disclosure here, I'm the Open Space Committee rep, and my Open Space Committee term is up of June 2023. So I'm not sure, and I think I'm at a term limit. I don't know. I can do it till then, and if I'm not on the Open Space Committee, am I still on CPA? I don't know.
Yeah, you're on, I'd have to look. I
My
don't have-
CPA term is till 2024. It goes
I think I
beyond
have-
my open
yeah,
space term.
I have the.
Because I'm,
have
who
the
who am
thing.
I here for?
You see.
Oh,
she-
Kate
she was-
Logan.
So
she
you
was-
might be a member at large.
No, she's not a member at large.
I know, but
I'm a
that's
member
what,
at large and Dan's a member at large.
No, she's here.
Yeah.
She took over here
for Kate.
and you expire 6:30, not you, you don't. Your term expires. Your term expires
Already,
on 6/30/24.
yeah.
2024, even if,
Right.
so,
Here's your, you took over a position.
Yeah,
right. But what I'm saying is, can I still stay on if I no longer am on the open space committee?
The answer is,
No.
the answer is no.
No,
See, so I couldn't stay till my term.
You'll
Well,
be
I don't-
asked to probably.
Well,
Okay.
you think you're gonna be
Uh,
termed out on?
I'd be
open
happy
space?
to be clerk until I can't be.
All right, let's take that.
Well, they get it,
Unless,
yes.
unless Carolyn really wants to be the clerk.
do I have a motion to approve naming Joanna Buffington as the clerk to replace Sheila Filipowski due to her recent resignation?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I'll put down Dan and Eileen. All in favor of
Aye.
Aye.
aye, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 to
She
0.
even said aye.
6 to 0.
Hey, Jim.
Um,
Can you
okay,
add Sheila here?
Oh,
what is your question, Eileen?
Oh.
Cause she's on the annual.
Yeah, the
Just leave it.
the problem is that they
It's already
needed
been
them
submitted.
ahead of time.
It's already been.
So I don't know. It's already been submitted,
Yeah,
but I
right,
can
right,
ask.
yeah,
Yeah, yes, I agree. It's a good point.
yeah,
Okay,
okay. Our next meeting is January 11th, and
Okay,
we have four.
Oh, not the
Four,
I thought it
Do
was
we
the
expect the
fourth.
town hall thing to be?
I'm sorry.
Do we expect the town hall?
Based
application
on what Paul has told me, we expect something on.
Prior to
Can
the
you,
11th?
can you confirm that, Paul?
And don't we have FinCom on the 11th?
FinCom is next Wednesday.
But
Eh,
January 11th, we
isn't
have,
our normal date?
January 4th is the next
Fourth, not
CPA
Yeah.
meeting.
January
the
4th
fourth.
is the next CPA meeting. Yeah, Paul, you're
Yeah, we have the 14th if necessary, and we don't, so is January 4th.
Correct.
January 4th, not January 11th.
Did I
That
have?
was if necessary.
Okay.
Oh, yes, right. You're right.
January
January
4th.
4th.
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, the town manager said she would have some information ahead of the meeting regarding the town hall project.
Okay.
Okay, and I have, thanks, Paul, and I have one other thing. A number of us have had some questions regarding financial, all the financial stuff associated with this committee. And I was thinking that instead of just coming out and asking questions and without giving Tina any advance notice, our meeting in February 1st, which is a regular meeting, and we have votes on the conditions and reserves and stuff like that. Whether, if people had questions, financial questions, if they wanted to, I'm promoting or proposing, I guess. If people had questions, financial questions, they could send them to me, and then I could sort of collate them and then put them together and then send them to Gina. And then she could have a list of the types of questions people might have, so that when we met on February, she'd be able to discuss our questions with her. What are people's thoughts?
Sounds fine.
Okay. Okay, so if
Yeah,
anybody,
and if Tina can't get it done by that, we'll just push it off to the
Right.
next month.
yeah,
But I think she should have ample time
yeah,
to prepare.
yeah.
Yeah.
With questions that people have.
Of course.
Okay, so I'm proposing that if you have any financial questions, to just send them to me, don't send them to everybody else.
Okay.
I'll collate them in some fashion and send them to Tina, and so at the moment, we'll try to put it on our agenda for the February 1st meeting. Is that okay, Tina?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Dan and Ed, all in favor?